The whipped cream was still in Sophie's hair when I realized my marriage was over. I'm Eli Harper, and I fix things for a living. Busted toasters, broken laptops, shattered phone screens, you name it, I can make it work again. What I couldn't fix was my wife's wandering heart, but I'm getting ahead of myself. It was a Tuesday night in our cramped apartment above my repair shop in Millfield, Maine. Sophie burst through the door, her dark hair disheveled, a guilty flush on her cheeks. She claimed she'd been doing inventory at her bookstore cafe until midnight. Funny thing about whipped cream, it doesn't usually feature in book inventory. Long night? I asked, not looking up from the vintage radio I was rewiring. You know how it is, she said, avoiding eye contact. Maya needed help with the espresso machine. Maya, Sophie's best friend and barista. The same Maya who'd been covering for Sophie's late nights for months. I'd noticed the pattern, Sophie's sudden interest in working past closing time, the new clothes she couldn't afford on cafe profits, the way she guarded her phone like state secrets. But it was the whipped cream that sealed it. A dollop behind her left ear, sweet evidence of activities that definitely weren't business-related. The next morning, I decided to pay my loving wife a surprise visit. The Turning Page Cafe sat on Millfield's quaint main street, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs. Very Instagram-worthy, which Sophie loved. She was always posting pictures, building her brand as a literary entrepreneur. I walked in carrying a box of donuts from Murphy's Bakery, playing the devoted husband role to perfection. Eli! Sophie's voice pitched higher than usual. What are you doing here? Maya, manning the espresso machine, went pale. Interesting reaction for someone with nothing to hide. Brought breakfast for my hard-working wife, I said, setting the box on the counter. You seemed exhausted after your late inventory session. Sophie's hand flew to her neck, where a purple mark peeked above her scarf. Just tired, you know how it is. Actually, I don't, I replied. But I'm learning. That's when Mrs. Kavanaugh, our 70-year-old neighbor, chimed in from her corner table. Sharp-eyed and sharper-tongued, she never missed anything. Speaking of late nights, she said, stirring her coffee with deliberate slowness, I saw Sophie out by the boardwalk around 11. With that tall foreign fellow, Luca, isn't it? Such good friends, those two. The color drained from Sophie's face. Maya suddenly found the espresso machine fascinating. Luka Vukovic. I knew the name. Eastern European, early 30s, one of those digital nomad types who traveled the world taking photos for his blog. He'd rolled into Millfield 6 months ago, all mysterious accent and designer clothes. The local women ate it up. Luca needed help with his camera equipment, Sophie said quickly. It was purely professional. Of course it was, I said. Just like your inventory. That night, while Sophie showered, I made a discovery that changed everything. Her purse sat on the dresser, and her second phone, the one she thought I didn't know about, was buzzing with notifications. I shouldn't have looked. But when your marriage is crumbling, privacy becomes a luxury you can't afford. The messages were explicit, graphic, and they painted a picture of my wife that made my stomach turn. Sophie and Luca planning their next adventure, mocking me, calling me the clueless husband who was too busy fixing other people's junk to notice his own life falling apart. The bathroom door opened. Sophie emerged in a towel, humming some tune I didn't recognize. So, I said, holding up the phone, who's Luca? And does he know you snore? Sophie froze, the towel slipping. In that moment, I stopped being her husband and became her reckoning. It's not what you think, Sophie said, which is exactly what guilty people always say. Really? I scrolled through the messages. Because it looks like detailed plans for activities that would make a sailor blush. Should I read them aloud, or do you want to explain the one about the whipped cream? Sophie sank onto the bed, the fight draining out of her. Eli, please, it just happened. I never meant for me to find out, I finished. Yeah, that's clear from the part where you call me pathetically oblivious. The next day, I needed perspective. I found it at Jimmy Riley's marina repair shop, where my oldest friend was elbow deep in an outboard motor. She's cheating, I announced without preamble. Jimmy looked up, grease streaking his weathered face. Sophie? With who? That European photographer, Luca. Jimmy wiped his hands on a rag, processing this. The pretty boy with the fancy camera? Man, I'm sorry. What are you gonna do? I'm gonna hit back, I said. Smarter, not harder. Jimmy grinned. Now you're talking. What do you need? We started digging. Jimmy had a knack for finding information, a useful skill in a small town where everyone's business was everyone else's entertainment. Within hours, we'd uncovered Luca's digital footprint. His travel blog was public, full of artistic photos and philosophical musings about wanderlust. But dig deeper, and patterns emerged. DMs to married women in every town he'd visited. A private folder of intimate photos, including several of Sophie, stored on the cafe's Wi-Fi network. The password was turning page 123. Not exactly Fort Knox security. This guy's a serial homewrecker, Jimmy said, scrolling through Luca's messages. Look at this. He's got the same playbook for every town. Seduce a local woman with money or connections, milk the situation dry, then move on. And Sophie fell for it. Sophie chose it, Jimmy corrected. There's a difference. The next afternoon, I spotted them together on the boardwalk. Luca had his hand on Sophie's lower back, that possessive gesture that screamed ownership. They were laughing at some private joke, probably at my expense. I walked up carrying an iced coffee from the competing cafe across the street. Sophie! What a surprise seeing you here during business hours. She startled. Eli, this is Luca, I interrupted. The photographer. I've heard so much about you. Luca extended his hand with European confidence. And you are the husband, yes? Sophie speaks of you often. I bet she does. I went to shake his hand and accidentally tilted my coffee. The iced liquid splashed across his expensive camera bag and pristine white shirt. Oh no, I said with mock concern. Sorry about that. Must be the humidity. Makes everything so slippery. Luca's face darkened. You did that on purpose. Did I? Funny, Sophie said the same thing about your friendship. But accidents happen, right? The tension crackled between us. Sophie tried to play peacemaker, but I was done with her performance. Clean yourself up, Luca. Wouldn't want the locals to think you're anything less than perfect. I walked away, leaving them to deal with the mess, literally and figuratively. That evening, I uploaded Luca's DM screenshots to the Millfield Community Watch Facebook group. Anonymous post, of course. Just a concerned citizen warning local wives about a predator in their midst. The response was immediate and brutal. Women came forward with their own stories. Luca's carefully cultivated image crumbled overnight. Photography clients canceled. The bed and breakfast where he was staying asked him to leave. Sophie confronted me the next morning, storming into my shop like an avenging angel. You destroyed him, she screamed. Luca's lost everything because of your jealous lies. Lies? I looked up from the tablet I was fixing. I just shared his own words. If that destroyed him, maybe the problem isn't me. He's leaving town because of you. Good. One less parasite to worry about. Sophie's eyes filled with tears, whether from rage or genuine emotion. I couldn't tell anymore. I loved him, she whispered. No, I said quietly. You loved the idea of him. The excitement, the drama. You loved feeling special. But love, real love, doesn't mock the person who built a life with you. She left without another word. But the war was just beginning. 3 days later, Luca made his move. I was closing the shop when he appeared in my doorway, no longer the smooth charmer, but something harder and more desperate. We need to talk, he said. Do we? I thought you were leaving town. Because of your lies, yes. You have destroyed my reputation, my business. For what? A woman who does not love you? The words stung because they carried truth. Sophie had made her choice clear. Here's what's going to happen, Luca continued. You will post a retraction. Say the screenshots were fake, that you were angry and made mistakes, or I will make your life very difficult. I laughed. How? You're broke, homeless, and about to be run out of town on a rail. I know people. I can make problems for you. Your business, your credit, maybe even this building. Accidents happen, yes. The threat hung in the air between us. I set down my screwdriver and looked at him. Really looked. Beneath the designer clothes and European sophistication was just another bully who'd never been punched in the mouth. You know what your problem is, Luca? You think everyone's as weak as the women you manipulate. But I'm not some lonely housewife looking for excitement. I'm the guy who fixes things when they break, and right now, you're very broken. We will see, he said, and left. That night, Jimmy called with news. Your boy Luca's got bigger problems than bad reviews, he said. I did some digging. He's married. Wife's back in Serbia, been sending her money from his photography business, except the money's been coming from Sophie's cafe account. The pieces clicked into place. She's been funding his lifestyle. Gets better. His visa expires next month. He's desperate for cash and a green card. Sophie's not just his side piece, she's his meal ticket. Does she know he's married? Hard to say, but I found his wife's Instagram. She's pregnant, Eli. Due in 3 months. I felt sick. Sophie might be many things, but she wasn't cruel enough to knowingly destroy a pregnant woman's marriage. Was she? The next morning brought my answer. Sophie appeared at my shop, but she wasn't alone. Maya flanked her, along with 2 other cafe employees I recognized. We need to talk, Sophie announced. Seems to be the theme this week. Luca told me what you said to him. The threats. I blinked. What threats? Don't play dumb. He's scared to leave his room because of you. Sophie, I never threatened him. If anything, he threatened me. Liar! Maya stepped forward. You've been harassing him for weeks. Stalking him, spreading lies. The screenshots of his messages are lies? Taken out of context, Sophie said quickly. You don't understand our relationship. Your relationship? I pulled up Luca's wife's Instagram on my phone. Does your relationship include his pregnant wife back in Serbia? The silence was deafening. Sophie stared at the phone, her face cycling through confusion, realization, and finally rage. You're lying, she whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. Her name's Milica. They've been married 3 years. Baby's due in December. Want to see the ultrasound photos he liked last week? Sophie grabbed the phone, scrolling through the posts. Her face crumpled as the truth sank in. He said he was divorced, she whispered. He lied. About everything. The money you've been giving him? It's going to support his real family while he plays house with you. Maya looked between us, finally understanding. Sophie, is this true? About the money? Sophie didn't answer. She didn't need to. The guilt was written across her face. How much? I asked quietly. It was a loan, she said defensively. For his equipment, his travel expenses. How much, Sophie? 15,000. The number hit like a physical blow. $15,000 from a struggling cafe. Money that could have saved our marriage, our business, our future. Jesus, Sophie, Maya breathed. That's the cafe's entire savings account. He promised to pay it back when his book deal came through. What book deal? I laughed bitterly. The man's a con artist. There is no book deal. There never was. Sophie's employees exchanged glances. I could see them calculating. How many missed paychecks, how many corners cut, all to fund Sophie's midlife crisis. I need to think, Sophie said, heading for the door. Think fast, I called after her. Your boy Toy's visa expires in 3 weeks. Want to bet he disappears with your money before then? After they left, I sat in my empty shop, surrounded by broken things waiting to be fixed. But some things, once broken, could never be made whole again. That's when I decided to stop trying to fix my marriage and start fixing my life. The plan came together over the next few days. Jimmy helped, of course. So did Mrs. Kavanaugh, who had her own reasons for disliking Sophie's recent behavior. Even Maya, once she realized how Sophie had been using the cafe's money, became an unlikely ally. "She's been lying to all of us," Maya confided over coffee. "About the finances, about Luca, about everything." The other girls are talking about quitting. "What if I told you there was a way to save the cafe?" I asked. Maya leaned forward. "I'm listening." The trap was elegant in its simplicity. Using Sophie's phone, she'd never changed her passwords. I sent Luca a message. "Meet me at the old warehouse on Pier 7, midnight. Eli knows about the money. We need to talk about damage control." Luca took the bait. The warehouse had been abandoned for years, a relic of Millfield's fishing industry, perfect for a private conversation. Jimmy waited outside while I set up inside, Maya recording from a window across the alley. Luca arrived right on time, nervous energy radiating off him like heat. "Sophie?" he called into the darkness. "She's not coming," I said, stepping into the light. His face went through several expressions before settling on anger. "What is this?" "This is a conversation between two men about the women they've been lying to. I have nothing to say to you." "That's fine. I have plenty to say to you." I pulled out my phone. "Starting with your wife, Melissa. Beautiful woman. Pregnant women have that glow, don't they?" Luca went very still. "You know nothing. I know you've been stealing money from my wife to send home to your real family. I know your visa expires in 18 days. I know you've been running the same scam in every town from here to California. It is not stealing if she gives it willingly. Under false pretenses. That's fraud, Luca. Federal crime. Immigration takes that very seriously." "You cannot prove anything." I smiled. "Bank records, wire transfers, your wife's social media posts thanking her wonderful husband for the money. Sophie's cafe account showing 15,000 in mysterious withdrawals. Want me to keep going?" Luca's composure finally cracked. "What do you want?" "I want you gone. Tonight. No goodbye to Sophie, no last-minute cons, no forwarding address. Just gone." "And if I refuse?" "Then I send everything to immigration, your wife, and the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. Your choice." Luca lunged at me, but I was ready. I sidestepped, and he crashed into a stack of old crates. When he came up swinging, I grabbed a can of spray paint from my toolkit and let him have it right across his precious leather jacket. Hot pink paint splattered across the expensive leather, spelling out "Home Wrecker" in dripping letters. "Oops," I said. "Butterfingers." Luca stared at his ruined jacket, then at me. "You are insane." "No, I'm thorough. Maya's got the whole thing on video. Your choice, Luca. Leave quietly or become Millfield's most famous viral video." He looked toward the window where Maya's phone was clearly visible, recording everything. "This is not over," he snarled. "Yes, it is." Luca stormed out, paint still dripping from his jacket. Through the window, I watched him get into his rental car and drive away, leaving rubber on the pavement. Phase 1 complete. Sophie found out about Luca's midnight departure when she went to his room the next morning and found it empty. She came to my shop in tears, demanding answers I didn't give. "He's gone," she sobbed. "Just vanished. His things, his car, everything." "Maybe he got tired of playing house," I suggested. "You did something." "I know you did. I opened your eyes." The rest was his choice. Over the next week, the truth came out piece by piece. The cafe's financial crisis, Luca's wife and unborn child, the trail of broken marriages he'd left across 3 states. Sophie's employees quit one by one until only Maya remained. "I'm taking over the cafe," Maya announced during what would be Sophie's final staff meeting. "The landlord agreed to transfer the lease. The suppliers will work with me. The customers trust me." Sophie looked around the empty cafe. Her dream turned nightmare. "You can't do this." "It's my business." "Built with whose money?" I asked from the doorway. "The 15,000 you gave to Luca came from the business account." "Maya's been covering the shortfall for months. Legally, she has more claim to this place than you do." "I'll fight this," Sophie said. "With what lawyer?" "What money?" Maya's voice was gentle but firm. "Sophie, you killed your own dream. We're just cleaning up the mess." Sophie turned to me, desperation in her eyes. "Eli, please, we can fix this. Start over." "Some things can't be fixed," I said. "Some things are just broken." The final blow came 3 days later. Mrs. Kavanaugh knocked on my door with a manila envelope. "Thought you should see this," she said with satisfaction. Inside were printed emails between Sophie and Luca, planning to drain the cafe's account and disappear together. Sophie had been in on the con from the beginning, planning to abandon everything, including me, for a new life with her European lover. Except Luca had conned the con artist. While Sophie plotted to betray me, he was already planning to betray her. I found Sophie at the marina, sitting on a bench and staring at the water. She looked older somehow, diminished. "I know about the emails," I said, sitting beside her. She didn't deny it. "He said we'd travel together, see the world, start fresh somewhere new. With my money, and Maya's jobs, and your customers' loyalty." "I felt trapped," she whispered, "like I was disappearing into this small-town life, becoming someone I didn't recognize. So you decided to disappear everyone else instead." Sophie finally looked at me. "I'm sorry, Eli. For all of it. I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix $15,000 in theft. Sorry doesn't give Maya her job security back. Sorry doesn't undo 6 months of lies." "What happens now?" I stood up, looking out at the harbor where fishing boats bobbed in the evening light. "Now you live with your choices. Maya runs the cafe, I run my shop. And you figure out who you want to be when nobody's watching." "What about us?" "There is no us, Sophie. There hasn't been for a long time." I walked away, leaving her alone with the consequences of her decisions. Behind me, I heard her crying, but I didn't look back. Some things, once broken, are meant to stay that way. 6 months later, I was rewiring a vintage jukebox when Maya stopped by with coffee and news. "Heard from Sophie lately?" she asked. "Not since the divorce papers were signed." "Why?" "Got a postcard. She's in Portland, working at a bookstore. Says she's trying to rebuild her life." "Good for her." Maya studied my face. "You're really over it, aren't you?" I looked around my shop, busier than ever, thanks to word of mouth from satisfied customers. Through the window, I could see the Turning Page Cafe, thriving under Maya's management. Mrs. Kavanaugh waved from her usual corner table. "I always said I fix things for a living," I told Maya. "Guess I finally fixed my life." She smiled. "And Luca?" "Immigration caught up with him in Boston. Turns out he'd been running the same con for years. He's back in Serbia now, explaining to his very pregnant, very angry wife why their bank account was empty." "Karma's a beautiful thing," Maya said. "That it is." After she left, I returned to the jukebox. It was a beautiful machine, built to last, just needing someone who cared enough to make it work again. Like most broken things, it just needed the right touch. I plugged it in and selected a song. The music filled the shop, clear, strong, and true. Some things are worth fixing. Others are worth letting go. I'd finally learned the difference.